Hello everyone and welcome back to another How I Paint video. I'm Catherine and I'm an amateur artist and an Etsy seller. In today's video, I'm going to attempt to paint a misty forest scene for my stepdad's 70th birthday, and I thought it would be good to show you the process and what I learn along the way, as I haven't actually done mist before, but I've been watching some videos and have a technique I want to try, so hopefully it all works out and I have a present for my stepdad by the end of this video. This is the reference photo I'm using. I got it off Pixabay. So to start with, I've taped down some paper to a piece of cardboard so I'll get a nice clean border and I don't have to worry about going over the edges. I personally don't like sticking the paper down onto the table because I like to move the paper around a lot to get the right angles. I'm just doing a very rough sketch in pencil before I start painting, just so I have some idea of the layout of the trees and the path. Now it's time to get the acrylic paints out and start painting. I've mixed some Prussian blue, lamp black and white paint together to get this grey blue colour, and I'm just going to apply this all over as a base layer and a background, so then if there are any gaps in the leaves, it'll then look like sky showing through rather than white paper. I'm going to use a hairdryer a lot with this painting, as there will be lots of layers and it's so important that each layer is dry before starting the next one, so you don't start lifting up any of the paint and smudging it. I'm now going to start painting in some of the trees that are furthest away. I'm using burnt umber and black mixed together. I'm not going to do these trees in any detail because they're in the distance and most of them will be painted over anyway, so I'm just focusing on the shapes and colour. Here I'm using an angled brush and I'm adding in some branches pretty randomly. Again, I'm not paying attention to any detail because they're in the distance and it just isn't important at this stage. Now I'm going to paint in some of the foliage, and I've mixed together chromium oxide green, sap green and a little bit of black. I'm using sap green here to add in some of the bushes at the bottom of the trees. To create the misty look, I'm going to paint over each layer of the trees with the same colour I used for the background, but it's going to be a lot more watered down. This means the trees at the back will have more layers of paint applied to them than the trees in the foreground, so it really gives the painting some depth. I'm using a large paintbrush to do this, but to make it smoother, you can use a cloth. So I've just dried it out with a hairdryer again, and now I'm going to paint in some more trees, but this time they'll be slightly wider and I'll bring the trunks further down the page so they appear closer. There's always an ugly stage of my paintings, and we're definitely in that stage right now. But I have to trust that it will all come together by adding more and more layers. So don't panic if your painting's looking a little bit rubbish right now. Just keep going with it and build up those layers. Again, I'm adding in the branches with the angled brush, but I'm still not focusing too much on detail at this point. I'm not adding as many leaves in this layer, just because with pine trees, they often don't have leaves lower down, and the closer the trees are to you, the less you're going to see of the tops of the trees if you are looking straight ahead. With the bushes, I'm just doing the same as I did in the last layer, where I'm just adding it around the bottom of the tree trunks. Time to do another layer of the watered down grey blue paint. Now that that's dry, I'm going to do another layer of trees, and this time round I will be spending more time on them, as they will now be large enough to see some of the details. For the base layer of the trees, I'm going to use the same colour I used previously. I'm doing the trees slightly lighter this time round. I've added some burnt sienna with the burnt umber and black that I used before. I'm adding a shadow to the left-hand side of the trees. For the branches, I'm using a rigger brush, as I'm now going to place the branches properly and add some shape to them. I'm adding little dark spots to the trees, and these will be the knots. I've also added in some highlights with burnt umber mixed with some white. Here I've started painting the leaves before finishing the trees, just because I want some of the leaves to be in front of other trees and some behind, so it's easier for me to do it at the same time. So I finished off that layer of trees and painted in the foreground, but this was just to get some colour down and so I can get the path positioned. So it's not very detailed, but I'm currently adding in some darker green to the foliage so the bushes have more texture. I'm now adding a bit of a yellowy green because I want the bushes towards the front to stand out more than the ones in the back, I've mixed together some sap green with yellow ochre. Again, I'm going in with a darker green to create some shadows and shapes to the bushes. I've done another wash over the trees, and now I'm going to repeat the process that I've just done. Again, this time round I'm going to be adding more details. Here I'm just adding some lighter streaks to the tree trunks to create the bark and give it a bit more texture. The trees are now close enough that you can see the shadows and the highlights on the branches, which is what I'm doing here. I find this helps to make the trees really stand out. I've painted in the leaves and added in some lighter green, and now I'm working on adding in some smaller trees at the base. I'm just adding in some light brown for the path now. I'm not putting any detail in yet, it's just to get some paint down. I think I'm going to do one more wash over the trees and then put in 2 final trees just to finish it off. I forgot to film the final layer, but it was basically repeating what I did in the previous layers. For my first Misty scene, I'm actually quite pleased with how it turned out, and I've definitely learnt a lot. Next time, I'll do it on thicker paper or canvas because the paper did warp, which made it harder to do the straight lines of the trees. I also wish I had used warmer colours because it ended up being quite dark and moody, but we learn from our mistakes and that's why it's so good to practice new techniques. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video then please give it a like and check out my How I Paint a Seascape video. I'll be posting more How I Paint videos, so if that's something you want to see then subscribe to my channel. Thanks again and I'll see you next time.